back to the Stanwood Foursquare Mancast. We're here with Joe, episode 2. Last week we talked about some great things mostly about how are you a happy guy, rejecting the grumpy old man narrative. That's so great. And I think even continuing in that vein, one of the things I've got to watch you from afar is in the last couple of years, you have changed seats. You pastored a church for 43 years, and you've handed it off to the next generation. And just in meetings and stuff, we've had a lot of brief conversations about that. But I'm learning and thinking about my future. One of the things, Joe, that I've constantly been surprised by is how surprised people are when things change.
And it's the one constant.
Yeah, life changes all the time.
Yeah.
Like I run into so many guys I think who recently retired, and it's like they didn't think that would ever come, and they haven't prepared for it mentally, emotionally, financially. Even in my work of working with churches, especially in ministry, a lot of pastors never thought about retirement, so they're not prepared financially, so they're having to stay longer. But even just guys in the general public, I think of a couple of guys they retired from Boeing, did a great job, and they've just been kind of lost for the last several years. It should be some fun seasons of life, and I don't see them or experience them having a lot of fun in retirement, and they're shocked by it. Like even now, as we're getting ready to be empty nesters, and I've tried to be like, I don't know what it's going to feel like, but I know it's going to be different, and so we're at least going to think about what we're going to think about in this transition. But I'm shocked at how many people don't think about what's coming down the pipe. So how have you, as a 74-year-old man, changing seats in retirement? So two-part question is, what did you think about when you were 30, 40, 50, 60 about seasons of life? And then we'll talk maybe more about how's it been changing seats? What's that done in your heart and soul?
Well, when I say in my 30s, I thought mostly about sex, but
I'm still there, bro. Maybe you said I'm a young man. Is that good?
Yeah, you're a young man. That's right.
Good.
Of course, I got saved, grew up in the Jesus People movement. Jesus is coming back.
We don't need to play
why plan?
Look in the sky.
Yeah, we're going to heaven. But somewhere along the line, I realized I won't be doing this forever.
Yeah.
And is there life after my job? One of the things about the idea of calling in the Bible is used in two different senses. Vocation can be, first of all, just in the pure spiritual sense, we're called to follow Jesus.
Yeah.
That's my primary calling, is to be a Jesus follower. Love God with all my heart, love my neighbors and myself. Yep. And then there's a calling that matches how God created us and how we bring those gifts and our presence into the world to engage the world and make it a better place. So, and for most of us men, that happens through our work, right? That our work,
identity, all that stuff.
That's our work where we engage the world, where we make a difference, we try to make things better, all that stuff. Yeah. So both those are callings, and both are important. But the thing is, this one, my calling to follow Jesus, never ends.
Yeah.
This one does. And the good news is when this one ends, as it will one day, our jobs will either get fired, quit, or retire.
Or make a mistake and get booted.
Get
removed.
Yes. So, but they'll end. And when they end, the good news is that I'm still a called person.
Yeah.
And that's my primary identity. I tell my students all the time, the most important thing about you is that you're a deeply loved child of God. Everything else is secondary. That's the most important thing. And you've got to believe that. That is what will carry you when you quit, when you're done.
Whatever vocation it is.
Whatever your job is, right? I get my last paycheck. And you're right, for us as men, a lot of our identity is built around what we do. Yeah. Right? Who are you? Oh, I'm Joe. What do you do?
Yeah.
That's the second question. Yep. And once you're retired, well, that answer changes.
What I did.
Yeah. Here's what I did. I used to be somebody.
Yeah.
The truth is you still are somebody.
You're still a human.
You're still that person. Yeah. And so the big question then becomes, and this is if you read, I've read a bunch of books on retirement and old people, right? And life. And The big question once we end our working careers and step into retirement is, what am I waking up to? I had a friend who said it this way. He said, Joe, it's not about what you retire from, it's about what you retire to. Yeah. So what's that purpose going to be? What's going to get you out of bed in the morning and make your heart beat a little faster? And that answer is going to be different for all of us. But that's the thing we have to think ahead to.
And I think that's where people don't often think about. They're like, oh, I don't have to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
And that can maybe last for like 2 weeks or a month maybe, or even 3 months. And then you're like,
bored.
What do we do? Because I think God's wired us to
do something,
create stuff. And even part of build the earth and subdue it. Like that's that's part of our role. So at those different seasons, when did you start thinking about succession? When did you start thinking seriously about what's next?
That's a great question. So sometimes
I'm worried. I might be thinking about it a little too early. You know, some guys who are like counting down the days to retirement. I'm always worried about them. I don't want to start thinking about it too early, but I don't want to start thinking about it too late.
Too late, and most of us think way too late.
Yeah.
I started in my 50s thinking about it.
Okay.
And mostly because I knew that, at least I thought that I would want to pass this on, the church, but still somehow stay and be engaged because it's my community.
Yeah.
It's all my friends. It's everybody I love, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, and historically, they ask pastors to leave. When you pass it on, you're gone.
Goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye. And to me, that felt really, really hard. And the other thing was, I also felt like, even though I would not be paid by the church anymore, I still had ministry in my bones.
Yeah, it's who you are.
It's who I am. Yeah. And would I be able to find a way to still make some kind of a meaningful contribution? Yeah. And so those were questions that haunted me and that I worked on. And then also the identity thing, because at our church, I'm Pastor Joe. That's who I am. I'm not Joe. I'm Pastor Joe.
Pastor Joe.
And the interesting thing is our church has been around long enough and had enough impact in the community that I'm that in the community too. I can't go anywhere without somebody saying, hey, Pastor Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, then the question, okay, if I stop doing that,
are you still?
Who am I? Who am I now? Yeah. So those are big things, the purpose, the identity. Got to wrestle through those ahead of time. And if you don't, there's probably a crisis following when you step away.
And then because you were really able to kind of make that manifest, that idea that you had of like still being involved in the church.
Yes.
And we had dinner last night and I was like, hey, what's a week look like for you? And I'm like, I think you're working more than you ever have.
Too much.
Yeah. But in different roles.
Yeah.
How has that been from being the guy? Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's whatever level, that's a lot of our identity is not necessarily the work we do, but being the one that people go to at whatever level that is, right? Yeah. That I'm the guy. I provide. I'm the answerer. I can make that happen. Yeah. How has that gone from you? Because now your son is pastor in the church and you're like a guy on staff.
Yes.
You're overseeing youth ministry. Mm-hmm. How have you done that well? And I don't think many people could. That would be what I would say first. I haven't seen anybody else do that. How have you done that? What have you learned about yourself?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is I got to give credit to my son, who's been incredibly gracious, kind. He
could be like, I'm done with you, Dad. Or could feel threatened by you.
Yes. And he has
big shadow to fill. Yeah.
Yeah. Big shoes to fill. All that stuff. And he's been it's been great.
So that speaks of his confidence. And
yes. Yep. And his maturity.
Maturity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been really, really admirable, I think. All right. So I'm going to back up and tell you a story. Okay. So after we went through, I told you before when we were talking that we went through a several-year process of looking at different people and finally landing on Michael's the guy, my son. And that was, confirmed not just by me, but by other people. So once we knew that, there was a time when Michael said, hey, Sarah and I want to meet with you and the executive pastor. So we planned this meeting. And it was a transition meeting. Let's talk about what this looks like. Yeah. We've identified the guy. What are we thinking? And so our executive pastor led the meeting, and he says, Joe, let's start with you. He says, what are you thinking? What kind of time? And I said, I got a lot of gas in the tank. I think I'm going to go a good strong 5 years, and then we'll start the process. And, everyone's nodding. And then he turns to Michael and he says, Michael, what about you? What are you thinking? And Michael says, I'm thinking 1 year. And my head snaps over. I said, 1 year and we start the process? He said, no, 1 year.
And you're done.
And I'm done. And I'm the new pastor, And I'm looking around at the room. Everyone's nodding their heads. I'm going,
what happened?
Did I miss the memo?
This was not the plan I had. I thought I was still in charge.
What is this?
Yeah.
And so we had a great conversation around that. And then that was on a Thursday. I remember real distinctly because the next day my wife and I are headed to Manzanita, Oregon for a study and planning break. And I called my wife and said, honey, it's going to be a transition break. That's what we're going to do. And I went to the coast. I read 4 different books on pastoral transition. And then I called 2 or 3 of my friends who'd been through it and just quizzed them and took notes. And it was a learning time. And then I prayed like crazy. And I came back from that and said, here's what we're going to do. It's going to be a 2-year transition, 8 months, I do, you watch. 8 months, we do it together. 8 months, you do it, I coach. And then pass the baton. And we got to the midway point of that, and he was already doing so much that we just went straight to you do and I'll coach. And at the 2-year mark, pass the baton. And in that time period, we had lots of conversations about what would I do?
Yeah.
Once I passed the baton, and really the first thing he let me create my own job description and pick my own title, founding pastor. I picked that because nobody knows what a founding pastor does,
sure.
right? Yeah, I can do whatever I want. So I created my own job description, but at the top of my job description, it's do whatever Michael asks.
Okay.
Right? And so I'm doing the youth ministry because he came and said, would you coach our student leaders? I'm doing Northwest Leadership College because he came and said, hey, would you do this? And so on. So really most of my job description now has been in response to a need that's arisen. And I've been someone handy to have around.
that from an outside perspective, that would take a great deal of humility. Would you even process us that way? I don't even know. Because I think for most people that would feel like that'd be hard. I think that speaks of your character.
That's interesting because I never felt that. It never felt humbling to me. I think what felt humbling was passing the baton and, you take the second chair. You're not in the first chair anymore. And I told people I went from being the man to being the fan.
Being the man to the fan.
Yeah. And I am. I'm his biggest fan. And I told everybody right up front, I said, hey, I'm going to stick around. You'll see me. I'm doing this, this, and this. And, but I told people too, I said, and I'll be Michael's biggest fan, And so it's very interesting. I think in 5 years now, I can't think of anybody who's come to me to complain about Michael and look. Now, of course, I'm his dad too,
for
right?
sure.
But still,
they know they're going to get punched in the face. But still, I love that you said being a fan. I think that's just a positive outlook on things. Like this is going to work out, and I'm going to champion this. Have you read the book From Strength to Strength?
Yes, Albert Brooks.
Yeah,
Arthur Brooks.
Arthur Brooks.
Yeah,
and that whole idea, I think, even earlier in our lives than we realize, we go from being the people who are doing it and having the creative ideas and the innovators, like that kind of gets done in our 40s a lot of times.
Yes.
And so I don't think we're aware of how the world's moved on and we still think we're in a season that we're not in anywhere.
Yeah.
So that ability to define reality to where am I really at, I think takes great humility and self-awareness and learning and growing. Because I've even noticed that. Like, I'm not the guy who's driving innovation anymore. And to be honest, it stings a little bit. But at the same time, I'm really proud about that. Like, great, it's the next generation that's driving innovation. Yeah. And even at 48, I'm realizing, like, my time is not, I'm not dying, I'm not going anywhere, but it's a different season. Yeah. And I think you just got to be aware of those seasons of life.
Yeah. And, we were talking a little bit earlier about, not being a grumpy old man, right? Being positive. And one of the things about working with younger people, I think the opportunity to work with the younger people will help you not be a grumpy old man, right? I mean,
Keeps you young.
Oh yeah, it just helps keep you young. And I'm with middle school, high school, and college students all week long, and honestly, it's good for me. I mean, I enjoy it. But here's the thing: a lot of older people, when they think of relating to younger people, the way they want to relate is, I want to tell you what to do. I want to share my wisdom, my knowledge. I want to show, and I
want you to be in awe of me.
Yes, yeah. And we even will call it coaching. I'll coach you up. Yeah. But here's the thing. Most young people, what they want first is not an older person that will tell them what to do and coach them, but someone who will cheer for them and encourage them. And so my little thing is, I'm their cheerleader first. I'm their coach second. So by cheering for them, I win their trust, their respect, even their friendship. They like me. When they announced at our staff meeting that I was going to be the coach for the student ministry, they all cheered. Which I thought, I thought, you young people, you're getting the old fart, you're cheering. But it's because I was always cheering for them. Does that make sense? And so
you might be the only guy in America. Joe's role is he pastors the seniors ministry in his church and the youth ministry.
Yes, that's right.
Might be the only one in all of North America. There's a guy in our church. His name's Daniel. He's a retired minister, and he's a guy I admire too. And what I've noticed is he serves in children's ministry, and then he works with our young adults. He volunteers and shows up.
Isn't that cool?
And I'm like, I think that's the key. Like, we are who. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. If you want to be a grumpy old man, go hang out with grumpy old man, or sit on the recliner by yourself and watch the news. Yeah. Or be around people, and versus being frustrated by young people. What if we're just it's been even a change in me. Like these 30-year-olds, these millennials, these Gen Zs. And it's something that's even had to change in my heart to be like, wow, look at them. Look at their unique gifts. They process the world differently.
Yes.
Oh, I need to figure out how to navigate my life and leadership to them, not them navigating their life and leadership to me. Yes. And that keeps you young, keeps you energized, keeps you all those kind of things.
It's amazing. Yeah. You mentioned like our old people's ministry. I started that when I passed the baton, and we called it North of 55. It's very fun. They're my people, right? They get my jokes. They get all my cultural references. Jokes, Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's more laughter in that group than any other group I'm with. And part of it is, again, because
they just know your jokes.
They just know my jokes, It's like. But what I was going to say that's really cool is we, in that group, talk a lot about purpose, serving, being intentional with your life. That, most of you are retired now. But that doesn't mean you're done serving God.
Well, so what does it look like? We need them in the church, man.
Listen. And this is so much fun. We've had our middle school and high school pastor come, and they come probably every 3 to 4 months and make a pitch. And every time we'll get 3, 4, 5 of these ancient saints who'll sign up to lead a middle school boys group or high school girls group, or come to young adults and just be a wise presence there. Yeah. And it's been awesome.
And if you think the world's going to hell in a handbasket, go hang out with some middle school or high school kids who are fascinated by Jesus and want to learn and grow. And God's like, there's something's happening in our culture right now with young people who are like, tell me about Jesus. God loves me. Okay, my idea, because the culture has no answer for them, and they're ready for an answer.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to get fired up? Go talk to we have, Joe, this is fun. We have Bible clubs for kids that are led by students at pretty much every elementary school. I just met Isla Rose, who's leading. Wow. She had 4 people show up to her Bible study during recess.
Wow.
She's in 4th grade.
4th grade.
I'm going to cry. Sunday morning, I got to talk to her.
Wow.
At both middle schools, we have student-led Bible clubs.
How cool is that?
2 weeks ago, we took 20 Bibles to the middle school because they're like, these kids don't have Bibles. And one of the teachers there is handing them out to kids. Student-led, not the teachers handing them out. The students are handing the Bibles out.
Oh, that's so cool.
We got high school, Jesus Club at the high school. And guys, God is moving. And so if you're frustrated at the world, God is moving in the young people.
Go get started, get plugged in. One of my heroes is a guy named Mike. He's 70 years old and looks it, right? He looks all of 70.
Yeah.
And he leads a middle school group every Wednesday night. And in summer camp, he's got a cabin full of middle school boys.
Let's go.
70 years old. And I'm telling you, I don't want to do that. It is exhausting. I don't know how he does it. but I admire him. Yeah. And he's just a guy who heard the call and said, "Yep, I'm retired. I want to do something valuable with my life. I'll invest it in these kids."
And it's not everybody. Not everybody has the gift to be with young people.
No, not everyone should do that.
No, yeah. No. Please don't.
Yeah.
You got to pass a background check first and foremost.
Yeah, you do. That's true.
You got to make that happen. Hey, Joe, one of the things I think especially we're discovering, we just have a lot of, it's really great. God's bringing people who have no church background. They don't know anything to the Lord. And they're working out their faith and trying to figure out, how do I follow the Lord and what's right and moral for me to do? But also, this isn't an exercise in morality. It's an exercise in holiness and trusting the Lord. And, from things from drinking to marijuana that's now legal. Like, there's just a bunch of different challenging things of how do we be godly, pursue holiness, be holy as I'm holy, as God says, but also not make it about religion and rules. And one of the things that I always think about, we talked about Paul and Timothy, but Paul, he writes to Timothy in First Timothy chapter 4, and he says, "Here's Timothy, here's what you need to do. You need to watch your life and your doctrine closely." And there's something about our lives, like what we do, what we don't do, what we watch, what we don't watch, what we drink, what we don't drink, what we smell, all those kind of things. And then there's part of our theology, our ideas, what we think about God. And I see a lot of these young men, there's intrigue about, and the internet's a black hole of conspiracies and interesting theology things that are really intriguing and exciting. And it's a black hole that sucks. Even I'm seeing godly 30-year-old guys who want to follow Jesus. Those two, it's still the same thing. I love there's nothing new under the sun. What advice would you give as a pastor, as a father, as a mentor? How do you watch your life? How do you watch your doctrine closely? Because what does Paul say? In doing so, you'll preserve yourself and
your
those
hearers
and your family and whatever influence you have. Give us wisdom.
Look, so here's one thing that just popped into my mind while we were talking. So Nicholas Carr wrote a book 15 years ago now called, I think it's called "Is Google Making Us Stupid?" and then he updated it, 3 years ago anyway. And, because technology progressed a lot just in those 10 or 12 years.
His new one is AI making us stupid.
Well, but his basic idea is that we have lost the art of what he calls long-form reading a book, engaging with an author over a period of several hours and diving deep into an idea. And instead, it's all short-form reading, right? And you click on a web page or you flip something on your phone, and how long do you read? Average of 27 seconds, something like that. And maybe even less than that. But, you're just, again, you're doom scrolling, right? You're flipping through things. And he said it's actually, and there's been plenty of studies that have verified this, it's actually rewiring our brains and how we think. And we're losing that ability to think deeply, to think conceptually, and instead we're living on sound bites. Well, theology doesn't thrive.
The things of God are not sound bites.
They're not sound bites, right? And I mentioned earlier I read through the Bible every year. And I'm devoted to that, right? I'm immersing myself in the scriptures and I'm trying to think God's thoughts after him and let that reshape my thinking. And then I do a lot of long form reading. I keep track of the books I read, and I read widely, all kinds of things. I read fun stuff, novels, but I read, I'll read science, I'll read theology, I'll read politics, but again, I'm doing long form reading where I'm not just doing a 27-second catch of a headline and flip to the next page. And so I would encourage people, in terms of that, keeping track, paying attention to your life and your doctrine, to be a little bit more old school.
A little more analog,
More analog, And don't misunderstand me. I use my computer a lot. I do searches. I use AI. You're
not contending for the Amish lifestyle.
No, not at all. But I am saying that you do need to learn to think and read deeply. And that starts with the scripture, which is how you keep your doctrine straight, is you're just in God's word. And you're right. If you want to go online, you can find people spouting Oh, it's just craziness. It's a zoo.
Disconnected from reality.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Like you said, conspiracy theories. And that's why, I just shut out all that noise. I come back to God's word. And then are there books I want to read? I want to read books from trusted sources. Yeah. And sometimes I read books that I don't agree with, right?
Yeah, for sure.
To get a different perspective, different point of view. And I'll try to eat the chicken and spit out the bones, right? But still, I'd say that's a real critical part of both sides of that, the life and the doctrine.
That's really helpful because we've lost the skill to think deeply, to analyze. And even if it's not a part of our education system, my kids have come out of high school not with the ability to really think or analyze was it seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness? How do you do that? That's a deep, long form life.
Yes.
Wrestling with the things of God.
Yeah.
And for me, I've known, just even you said that, just reminded me, for me, some of the best theological is just sitting and thinking and being with Jesus in long form too.
Yes.
That's the formation.
Yeah.
That we're not being, I don't know. It's like we're being microwaved versus formed.
Very much. Very much. I was listening to an interview, Carrie Nieuwhof interviewing John Mark Comer. This was a month or two ago. And Comer was commenting on the rise of young men attending Catholic and Episcopal churches. Yeah. And why? And he said there are probably several different reasons for it, but he said one of the reasons, this I thought was fascinating, one of the reasons is that we live in a noisy world. Noise, information, constantly bombarding us, coming at us. And people go to church, and oftentimes it's more of the same.
Yeah.
More noise.
Lights.
Yep, noise, visuals, lights, fog, all the stuff, right? And again, not that any of that's wrong, but it's like some of these guys are going, where do I find quiet?
Yeah.
Where do I find peace? Where do I find stillness to actually hear from God? And what spoke to me about that wasn't that I'm going to run out and change my church service, but what spoke to me about that is that I want to train the people I work with how to spend that time with God in solitude, in silence, learn to hear his voice. And what
we didn't have to learn how to do that 20 years ago. The world I grew up in, I didn't have to learn how to be bored.
No.
And it's a learned behavior to make space.
Yeah.
To be quiet, to hear your own thoughts.
Yeah. My students at Northwest Leadership College, one of the things we've been working on this year is spending time in silence. And it's been perhaps the most difficult thing for them because they said, my mind is just whirring with noise, with voices, with ideas.
When we were talking about sabbaticals last night, one of our pastors, in his 30s, he took his first sabbatical, and I had challenged him, I want you to take 3 days of solitude. Never done it. Rocked his world. Yeah. And he met Jesus in a profound way that has changed him.
Yes.
And it's just, I realized I love being out in the woods by myself. That's exciting for me, but that's a non-normal, it has to be a learned behavior. It's just really different. That's great. You say it's a learned, it's probably where we need to disciple people into.
Yes.
A learned behavior of long form thinking and living in the nothingness.
Yeah. There's a great phrase that Eugene Peterson borrowed and put as a title of one of his books, A Long Obedience in the Same Direction. Yeah. And that idea of long, we're, like you said, we're microwave, we're short, we're quick, we're 27 seconds, we're click on the page, go to the next one. Yeah. And that's quite a contrast from a life of discipleship that is a long obedience in the same direction. We're called to follow Jesus. And that's, number one, it's a great adventure.
Yeah.
But number two is it's just a day by day, minute by minute endeavor, isn't it?
Well, and I think there's the idea that I'm going to learn it all. And you've been following Jesus for
60
years,
62. Yeah.
I've been following Jesus for, 40, 42 years. Yeah. And I just feel like I'm just at the tip of the iceberg of
all the time learning. Yeah. All the time.
The fullness of God's grace of who I am, who he is, who he's made me to be. I'm just preparing for the next week's sermon. That's just just blown away. So how did I not know that? How did I not see that before? And there's just something to that.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
about, watching your life and doctrine. So you're 48. You've been pastoring for a long time. Has any of your doctrine changed since you started pastoring?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. For sure, a lot of things.
I would hope so.
Yes, a lot of things have changed. Some space. I would say, here's what I would say, Joe. The core of my theology.
Same.
A couple things that I know: that Jesus is Lord, born of a virgin.
Yep. Died on the cross,
close-handed
raised from the
things.
dead. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That has not changed.
Not changed. Yep.
But there's primary and secondary things, and a lot of the secondary things are not as big as I once thought they were.
Yes.
And as I've read more and grown more,
Yes.
I went to a Bible school that they taught us one way.
Yeah.
And I was when I got out and actually started reading real theologians and broader church history, there's many ways that people have interpreted that over the years.
Yeah.
And the body of Christ is much bigger than we think. But there are some things that are out of bounds too.
Yeah.
I think that's where I've learned in two ways. Is I've places that I thought used to be okay, I've actually said, no, that's a line in the sand.
Yep.
I think human sexuality is you cannot read Genesis and come away with not understanding some nature of God and human sexuality and relationships. Mm-hmm. So it's changed, expanded and contracted.
Yes.
And it's in some ways, that would probably be same for you in some ways too.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. And I asked that question because it just dawned on me as you asking about my life and doctrine. I thought, well, my doctrine's changed some. And like you, I'd say core stuff, unchanged, solid. Secondary things, and like you, part of it's from just broader exposure, right? I was like, oh wow, there are smart people that see this differently, you know, and for good reasons. Mm-hmm. And I would say, here's a great example. We're Foursquare. We're egalitarian. Yep, that women can basically do anything men can do. And I would say that I started my ministry, even in Foursquare, as a complementarian. Yeah. But the more
complementarian is men and women are different, but men have a unique role.
Yes, right. Yeah.
In ministries particularly.
In particular, yeah. A complementarian would say women can do lots of things, but there are a few things that only a man should be a lead pastor. Yeah. Only a man should teach other men, and so on. Yeah. And an egalitarian would say a woman can do that if she's called and gifted by God. And here's the thing: there are scriptures on both sides of that debate, and in fact, both sides have built their position
on scriptures.
Yeah, and just interpreted them differently. And so, but I've made that journey from a more complementarian view to a more egalitarian view, and part of that is that some of the scriptures, and I've read a bunch of books on this. Right? Here's this argument, and I go, okay, they both have good arguments. They're both based on scripture. I think if I'm going to err, I want to err on the side of grace. Yeah, which would be this is a more gracious position, right, than this. In my understanding. For sure. Could I be wrong? I am more willing than ever in my life to admit that I could be wrong.
For sure.
Yeah.
And when you say what's changed, it would probably be less theology and more dogma. And dogma is practice of ministry and practice of life. And I think I grew up and had ideas. You have a lot of ideas of how the world should work and how ministry or church or anything. And that's your dogma. Mm-hmm. And then when you run into real life and real people and you recognize and you travel, this is one of the things that's helped me go around the world and watch people worship God.
Yes.
The same Jesus with the same core doctrine. Yeah. Who have radically different dogma. I remember one trip several years ago. We went through New York City and we went to a church in New York City, watched some of the richest, wealthiest people in the world worship God. And we ended up in Papua New Guinea. Oh my word. Some of the poorest people who were eating each other 2 generations ago, worshiping the same God. And you're like, okay, the doctrine's exactly the same, but the dogma is completely different and it still works. Yeah. And that blows your mind and realize, okay, God, you're bigger than I thought. Yeah. And the way that I prefer to worship you. And so here's what I've learned too, is people, they take their preference and they make it their theology. Yeah. There's a very difference between your preference. That's not necessarily the scriptural way of how we do it, right?
We sanctify our preferences.
Yes.
We like to, whatever we like. That's
our worship style is that's the way God made it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's dangerous. So I would say one of the big changes for me is, if I can use your word dogma and turn it into an adjective, dogmatic. Yeah. When we think of a dogmatic person, we think of a person who says, this is it, this is, and I have become far less dogmatic about those secondary issues and more willing to say, I see it this way. I realize other people see it this way. I could be wrong.
Yep.
So I'm going to be humble. I'm going to be gracious. I'm going to be gentle. I'm not going to turn this into a hammer.
And I think this has allowed me to not be frustrated with young people,
Yes.
to recognize how they're worshiping and experiencing the same Jesus, just like I did. I was a young guy who sang. I'll tell you that we came from the same church.
Yes.
Faith Center went piano and organ for years and years and years.
When I led the whole time, that's
Dave
what it was.
McBride was there playing organ, looking around the room. And I remember I was one of the first guys to bring a guitar on the stage and sing like a Chris Tomlin song in 1998.
Yeah.
And it was, whoo.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody's like, who's this young guy? And I had long hair. I remember one comment card is like, who's that young guy playing the guitar that's so loud with the long hair? And I don't know what happened. I blinked my eyes, and now I'm the old guy who's like, oh, why do we sing these songs that are so many words and all that?
It's our preferences.
It's our preferences. Yeah. And I it's that chair, like, oh, that's my chair. Don't sit in it. I like it. It just happens to us. I just want to be flexible and say, okay, God, I want to see God work in this generation, and even recognizing this is hard. In the last couple of years, we've had a lot of people leave the church because they said, Tim, and I can tell you about 8 meetings I had with people who said, Tim, we're leaving the church because it's not designed for us. It's designed for young families.
Wow.
And
they were older?
Yeah, and the boomers.
Yeah, and you'd think there'd be something in their heart that would say, bringing in young families,
so
how could we help? Yeah, it's the future of the church.
Yeah, and part of it was I had to measure in my heart, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And every one of those meetings I said, well, thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah.
Because your giving has allowed us to reach the next generation. And you're right, I can't do everything. And we're going to reach the next generation. That's really what I feel like God's called us to do. Yeah. And if you want to be a part of that, I'd love to have you, but I understand.
Oh, yeah.
I understand if you need something else. I can't be all things to all people.
Did you beg them?
I think they were already there. They were informing of their decision.
I was going to say, this wasn't a discussion.
And some of I knew after the fact.
This was an announcement.
Yes, this was an announcement. Yeah. But, and I get it. It is not a judgment. We all need different things. And
yeah, I get that too.
People, I couldn't be with myself this long if I was my pastor, right? So you just kind of make those things happen.
But there is a part of me that would love to go to those people and just say, oh,
yeah,
what an opportunity you have.
Oh, and I want to be that guy. That's what I want when I think about my future.
Yeah.
I want to be the guy who's stacking chairs and so excited for the next generation and say, I love these songs that they're singing because I hate them. That means they probably are good, right? Like that, that kind of just mentality that this is different. And I think that's a heart that just serves and recognizes.
My father-in-law, did you know Noel Campbell?
I think I met him once or twice.
Yeah, he's a legend. I mean, he was amazing. And, he sat in our church till the day he died. He lived with us the last 24 years of his life, and he died at 87. But he sat on the front row, and
your church is loud, and cranked up, lights,
all that stuff. Yeah, and that was not his preference, And he never once complained. And every time I asked him about it, he says, "Oh yeah," he says, "This is not my style." He says, "But it's not about me." Yeah. He said, I'm here to help the next generation come along. And then he would go home. You'll love this. He'd go home and he would put in his cassette tape of Jimmy Swaggart or Elvis Presley.
As they're singing the hymns, man.
And he'd get out his violin and play along.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great thing is even church is not designed to be your sole place of worship. Like you need to have a personal worship life.
Yes.
Yeah. My father-in-law was very similar. He died 4 or 5 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And he was 88. And when we went and visited him just a couple months, he was in a home. He had fallen. And he had devoted his life to spending with young people. He was a history professor.
Oh, yeah.
And his family, we couldn't get in to see him because his schedule was full with dozens of young people and young families who were coming to visit him.
Yeah.
When he couldn't even move, but because he invested so much in these young people, when he was old and dying, they were all there with him because he had coached them, loved them, believed in them, invested, was curious about their lives. And I just thought, what a rich, full life, a model of, he always invested in young people. Yeah. And when he was old, that's who was there by his bedside. Even when his family we were far away. We couldn't get in, literally, we couldn't get into the retirement home because they said, you got to wait your turn to get on the schedule.
That is so cool.
And I was like, man, I'd love for that to be true of me.
Yeah. One of the things, just one more thing about on the whole, not being grumpy and the curiosity. I think cultivating curiosity is intentional, and every person has a story,
for sure.
And everyone's story is unique and different and interesting. And I mean, I learned stuff about you and Anna last night. Yeah, it was fabulous.
I watched you do that. It was great. I even learned some stuff about Anna she hasn't shared to me when she was telling this. When you were just totally intrigued with her. Tell me about your story, Anna. Tell me who you are.
Yeah. But that's genuine for me. I mean, I think people are intriguing and interesting, and but to foster that curiosity and to learn to become a good question asker. I read a great book recently called The Art of Asking Better Questions, and it was so good. It had so much information. And it's one of the things I'm working on this year to hopefully grow in that skill of asking, better questions, becoming a better listener. But it really does stem from an internal curiosity that says there's so much I don't know that I'd love to know.
Yeah.
And I'm learning in most of my conversations with people, particularly when they say things that I go, to lead with, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that, and ask questions.
I love that. I meet with a coach every month.
Oh, you do?
2025 was, I want to be a better listener.
Yeah.
And I think if you ask my wife, I think I moved the needle on that. Got better. And 2026 is, how do I be a better question asker? So every month I'm getting coached, getting asked, how am I learning it, being better at asking questions.
Oh, that's good.
So, makes me feel good that I'm in good company. I'm maybe ahead of the game.
That's great.
Of learning those things. Good. Well, Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and just to spend so much wisdom and invest in this whole weekend and training leaders. Just admire you so much and so grateful for your investment in my life and you watching your life and doctrine closely, that you were able to finish really well. So grateful for you. So thanks, man. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.